It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. Egypt's foreign ministry hails the UN adoption of an Egyptian resolution on the IAEA Middle East assurances. The Israeli occupation bombards Gaza City with strikes in central and southern parts of Gaza. And Rapid Support Forces militia strike in Sudan's Darfur kills 75 people. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs hailed the adoption by the 69th UN Nuclear Conference of an Egyptian drafted resolution of applying assurances by the International Atomic Energy Agency to the Middle East. The IAEA adopted the resolution, which was passed by 120 seats in a sweeping majority vote. The ministry clarified that the resolution on the UN Nuclear Agency to subject all the nuclear facilities guarantees no exception. It also urged accessing all the countries in the region into the UN Non-Proliferation Treaty and establishing an area free of the nuclear weapons in the Middle East. The ministry noted that the resolution's adoption crowned the Egyptian sincere efforts for achieving nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation across the globe and in the Middle East in specific. The Israeli occupation army continued to pound several areas across the Gaza Strip, killing and wounding a number of Palestinians since dawn. 2 were killed in the western Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip, and 2 others in central city of Deir al-Balah, while several others were wounded by the tank shells in the northern Gaza City, which is facing a ground offensive. Civil action agencies said around the million people in the main city in the Gaza Strip, which is already vastly devastated, are facing massive bombardment and blockade in a psychological warfare that aims at depopulating the city. The Israeli occupation army warned that it will operate with unprecedented force in Gaza City, urging the residents to flee southwards, while announcing the closure of a temporary evacuation route opened 48 hours earlier. The military said that it was also operating in the areas of Rafah and Khan Yunis. The Israeli army spokesman said that the only possible route south was through Al-Rashid Street. Late on Thursday, the Israeli occupation military acknowledged that 4 of its soldiers had been killed in an explosive device in Rafah in southern Gaza. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said on X that the military incursion and the evacuation orders in northern Gaza are driving new waves of displacement, forcing the traumatized families into an ever-shrinking area unfit for the human dignity. He warned that the hospitals, already overwhelmed, are on the brink of collapse as escalating military action blocks the access and prevents the World Health Organization from delivering the life-saving supplies. At least 65,174 people, mostly civilians, were killed in the Israeli aggression war, according to the figures from the Palestinian Health Ministry. The United Nations General Assembly voted to allow the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to address the annual gathering of the world leaders next week through the video, after the United States said that it would not give him a visa to travel to New York. Several Western countries, including France, are expected to recognize a Palestinian state at the summit. Earlier, the United States again wielded the veto and thwarted the UN Security Council call for an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The 14 other members of the Council backed the resolution initiated in August in response to the UN's official declaration of famine due to the Israeli genocide war. The Israeli occupation police detained one of Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque's preachers after he delivered the Friday prayer sermon. Witnesses said that the Israeli forces made an armed incursion into the court of the mosque, which is located at the occupied Arab eastern part of Jerusalem, beating some of the worshippers before taking Sheikh Mohammed Saranda out of the mosque gate of Al-Maghariba. Meanwhile, the Israeli forces detained several Palestinians in raids that included the Barqin area west of the West Bank city of Janoun, as well as the Ramallah city. The Palestinian Wafa agency said that the Karama border crossing between the Israeli-occupied West Bank and Jordan was closed before the passengers. Earlier, 2 Israelis were killed in a shooting at the crossing, which Israel calls Allenby. Israel's occupation military claimed that the shooting was carried out by the Jordanian driving an aid truck from Jordan to Gaza. Jordan condemned the attack, saying it jeopardized the delivery of aid, with the Israeli occupation military later calling for aid from Jordan to be halted. Lebanon's health ministry said an Israeli strike on southern Lebanon killed 1 person and wounded 3 others in the latest attack, in violation of the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Meanwhile, the Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and Prime Minister Nawaf Salam discussed the Israeli military strikes that also hit western Lebanon since Thursday and probed the ongoing contacts to stop the aggression. Sudan's paramilitary forces killed 75 people in a drone strike that hit a mosque at a camp for the displaced people in Darfur. The strike came as the paramilitary rapid support forces pushed to oust the army from the Darfur region's main city of Al-Fashir. The details follow.
Sudan's anti-government militia, so-called rapid support forces, killed 75 people in a drone strike that hit a mosque at a camp for displaced people near the western city of Al-Fashir on Friday, pressing a push to capture Darfur's last army-held city. The emergency response room said that the attack struck a mosque at Abu Shuk camp just outside the North Darfur capital, Al-Fashir, which has been under the militia's siege for about 18 months in the final state capital in Darfur, still under the control of Sudan's army, which has been locked in a devastating conflict with the RSF since April 2023. The city's fall would hand the RSF full territorial dominance over the region, where the UN and rights groups have already reported mass atrocities, including ethnically targeted killings. Satellite imagery released by the Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab on Thursday showed RSF forces advancing on multiple fronts, including around Abu Shuk camp and the former UN-made peacekeeping base now used by anti-RSF joint forces. The analysis showed buildings near Abu Shuk have been razed to the ground between Monday and Wednesday. Al-Fashir remains under a communications blackout, making it difficult to verify casualties or coordinate aid. The conflict in Sudan, now in its 3rd year, has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced nearly 12 million, and created what the United Nations describes as the world's largest displacement and hunger crises. The conflict has divided the country, with army controlling with the north's north, east and center, while the RSF dominates swaths of the south and most of Darfur, where it has begun establishing parallel administrative structures.
The United Nations Security Council will vote on reimposing deep economic sanctions on Iran over its resurgent nuclear program. Britain, France and Germany, who intended to stop Tehran obtaining nuclear weapons, alleged that Iran has broken its promises under the 2015 treaty. Diplomatic sources expect that the resolution will not have the 9 votes needed to uphold the status quo, in which the sanctions remain lifted and as such the punishment will be reimposed. French President Emmanuel Macron said that he expected the international sanctions against Iran to be reinstated by the end of this month. The European Union proposed to bring forward the ban on the Russian gas imports as part of the new package of sanctions aimed at sapping Moscow's war chest and pleasing U.S. President Donald Trump. under the measures presented for the approval by the bloc's member states. The European Commission said that it aims to phase out the liquefied natural gas purchases from Russia by January of 2027, 1 year earlier than planned. The proposal comes as the United States pressures the European Union to end the fossil fuel imports from Russia, and the bloc seeks in turn to persuade Trump to take a tougher stance on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. U.S. President Donald Trump declined to approve $400 million in military aid to Taiwan in recent months, while negotiating on trade and the potential summit with Beijing. The decision would mark a sharp departure from the U.S. policy toward the democratic island, which faces a constant threat of invasion by China. Trump and his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, are set to speak Friday, the second call since the U.S. president returned to the White House. The telephone talks come as the two sides seek a compromise on tariffs. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un oversaw a test of an attack drone and ordered great use of the artificial intelligence in the technology. State media said that the exercise demonstrated the excellent combat effectiveness of the Kamsong series tactical attack drones. Reporting Kim expressed great satisfaction with the result. Kim also ordered the efforts to rapidly developing the artificial intelligence technology, as well as the expanding and strengthening of the drone production capabilities. Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources Karim Badawi said that Egypt attaches as a top priority upgrading the mining sector, adding that his ministry has adopted unprecedented reforms to create an appropriate atmosphere to attract the foreign investments. He added that in line with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's directives, his ministry has drawn up plans to remove all the obstacles facing the investors, follow simple models, facilitate procedures, and provide the incentives to attract more investments and optimize the use of the mineral resources. The minister's remarks were made during his meeting with the deputy chairman of Excalibur, a Spanish leader in the airborne and mapping geophysics industry. Minister of Agriculture Ala Farouk attended the G20 session held to adopt the ministerial declaration for the food security within the framework of his participation in the Group of 20 meetings in South Africa. Minister Ala Farouk expressed the Egyptian high appreciation to the G20 focus on soaring prices and market stability issues, stressing that the food security will be achieved only through uniting global efforts and focusing namely on the needs of developing countries in Africa. Within his activities in the G20, Minister of Agriculture met with the Saudi counterpart and reviewed the significance of enhancing the bilateral ties and opening new horizons of cooperation. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.